If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
You never disappoint with your introduction, Austin Angelo. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to another exciting episode of The Game Show, the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows. I'm Bradley Clarke, and this is a very special episode of The Game Show because my special guest is not someone you might expect. Typically, my guests are either game show hosts or producers or reality television contestants. However, today I'll be talking with one of my college professors. Yep, that's right. School is back in session right here on The Game Show. And as I've said on the program before, if I could choose any major to study in college, it would have been the major I created myself. Game showology, the study of game shows. And in a sense, I was able to live out that fantasy for one of my college semesters. More on that in a moment. But let me explain why I'm having one of my professors on the show. Well, it's because he has two game show connections. One with this show from the late 60s and early 70s.
It's the who, what, or where game. These are the questions our contestants will be answering today, and let's meet them now. Here's our current champion, returning with $3,225, Greg Nowakowski. From West Barrington, Vermont, a homemaker and mother, Mrs. Claire Durst. And New York City is the home of corporate accountant, Mr. John Kibbe. Who, what, or where? That's the name of the game, and now here's your host, Art James. Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to the Who, What, or Where game. Well, we have a fine returning champ, if you've been watching his exploits the last few days. Two great new challengers, a lot of the three W's coming up in 1 minute right after this.
And one with this show from the mid to late 90s.
Drowning in a sea of bills. Then it's time to play Debt. The game show where three debt-laden Americans just like you compete to have us pay off all their bills and go home with nothing. And now, let's meet today's contestant.
My name is Paul, and I'm in debt because of bad career decisions. Set back my finances.
My name's Gina, and I'm in debt because I went crazy buying furniture with my credit card.
I'm Jeff, and I'm in debt because I bought a really expensive computer.
And now, starting at host, the proud Prince of Credit, the Duke of Debt, Wink Martindale.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. And welcome to our show. Well, the country's in debt. You're probably in debt. But most importantly, our three players, Paul, Dina, and Jeff, have come to us today with their real-life debt. And one of them just might be lucky enough to get out of it by the end of this show.
That guy, Jeff, that you heard in the clip of Debt I just played, the one who was in debt because he bought a really expensive computer, he's my special guest today. And he just so happens to be sitting in the studio right now, ready to chat away. So please welcome onto the game show, former debt contestant and television professor at Hofstra University, Geoff Tarson. Jeff, thanks for joining me on the game show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here as well. And it should be noted that you have a third game show connection because you spell Geoff Geoff, just like Jeff
Edwards.
That's
yes.
right.
Uh-huh.
Legendary game show host Geoff Edwards. So 3 game show connections. Why do you think I asked you onto this show?
It's fitting.
Now, I want to let our listeners know how we actually know each other. Do you remember our first ever interaction?
I think I do. I was having office hours and you just showed up and said, so I understand you were on a game show. And I was a little taken aback. I said, yes, I was. But it was surprising because I had mentioned it sort of in passing in another class. And I just mentioned that I had been on a game show. And then word had spread, I guess. And you came in and then you knew that I'd been on debt. So I was like, wow, this guy knows game shows. And that was the beginning, at least how I remember it.
That's how I remember it as well.
Okay, good.
Because a friend of mine said, oh, there's this professor here who was on debt. Now, she didn't really know what debt was, but as soon as I heard that, I'm like, what? Ding, 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 Wink Martindale, debt, game shows. So I was on the hunt to find you.
Yes. Yes.
And then,
you did.
luckily, your door was open, and I come in, and I say, I heard that you were on debt,
Yeah.
which led to a 90-minute conversation.
I usually don't get a chance to talk game shows with people. A lot of people don't know much about game shows, and you do. I was amazed not only that we could talk about it, that you were so knowledgeable, but you were knowledgeable about the history of game shows, and that was very impressive to me. So yeah, we've had many a conversation.
Right, exactly. And now we're putting them to the radio airwaves.
Right.
Well, as I've mentioned on the game show from time to time, my dream and goal in life is to host television game shows, as well as create and produce them. But I've always stood by the philosophy that in order to be a successful member of the game show community, you need to know about the history of game shows. Because having as much knowledge about how it began and evolved and what shows and moments came before can work to your advantage in many ways. And sadly, I feel like it's one of those genres that the history isn't highly represented as much as it should be, and especially since it goes way back into the beginnings of television, into the radio era.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge history. And me being a TV fan, I can remember watching, there's an episode of I Love Lucy from the early 50s where they go on a radio game show. So game shows have been around a long time, and they were using it in their storytelling on early television. And now here we are 60-some years later, and game shows are still very, very much part of our lives.
Much more for mine, especially.
Yes, I can see that.
So aside from talking about debt, there's another reason why you're joining me as my special guest today. As I mentioned, you're a professor at Hofstra, and I had the pleasure of doing an independent study with you.
That's right.
Do you want to talk about how I chomped your ear off for a whole semester?
Yes. So you approached me about doing an independent study about game shows, about your knowledge of game shows and sort of the evolution of game shows through the years. And there really isn't a professor here that's appropriate for it. It's not like there's the game show professor here at
Until
Hofstra.
I step in.
Until you step in. When that happens, then you will move into that. But I assume you approached me because we had these conversations about it and I was knowledgeable, and I thought it would be really interesting from a studies perspective. There aren't that many television studies courses here to begin with, and I thought there is nothing like this, and I thought it would be interesting to examine really the history and the growth and then the decline and then the regrowth of game shows. And so that's what we've been doing this semester. And part of the concept was it would culminate with an interview. And I said, absolutely. So here I am.
Here we are. You have a storied past with game shows, so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your experience on debt, as well as your connection with the who, what, or where game, which is such a fascinating story. And then later on, Geoff, for the game of the day, it's going to be a little deja vu for you, because you're going to play the debt bonus round, Get Out of Debt, which you won $7,500 on over 20 years ago.
I remember.
And before we start, I've always wanted to ask a teacher of mine this, because over my years of schooling, I've learned a lot from all of my teachers. But I'm curious, throughout this independent study, how much about game shows have you learned from me?
I can't tell you the number of things I've learned. I make no bones about it. I think you are the expert in game shows. And honestly, listening to some of your previous podcasts, you can tell that the people you're interviewing, some of whom are experts or some of whom certainly just have a lot of experience in game shows, are learning things, are hearing things from you that they didn't know, or remembering things that they'd completely forgotten. I have yet to find a game show that I can reference that you don't know. You know, I have my own experiences watching them, or in a couple of cases actually being on screen, but the specifics of when shows were picked up and also behind the scenes, like why shows were made or why shows failed or how long it was between one incarnation of a show and another one. It's a great deal of information that you have at your disposal in terms of game shows.
Well, hopefully a lot of those Brad facts will come through again today.
Yes.
So you ready to get started?
I am.
Let's do that. So let's talk about the who, what, or where game, which for the listeners who might not know what this game was, I'm sure a lot of people my age have no idea what this is. It was a show that ran from December 29th, 1969 to January 4th, 1974, and it was hosted by
Art James.
Art James. And can you name any other game shows that Art James hosted?
I know he hosted, it was like a pinball game.
The Magnificent Marvel Machine.
The Magnificent Marvel Machine. That's the only other one I know he hosted. I'm sure he must have hosted something else, but those are the two that I was aware of.
And now, here's the man who runs the Magnificent Marvel Machine, Art James! Thank you very much, everybody. And welcome to the Magnificent Marble Machine. That machine is where the payoff is, where one of our players may win cash and prizes totaling $10, $20, maybe $50,000 or more.
There was Say When, which was another big show
Yeah,
he
I don't
did in
know
the
that.
60s. Blank Check,
Oh, I vaguely remember that title.
short-lived show. And Catchphrase in the 80s. Brad Fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Who, What, or Where game, it aired after Jeopardy
I remember that.
on NBC, the original Jeopardy with Art Fleming.
Yes.
And it filmed right here in New York City at Rockefeller Center. Brad Fact. So your connection with the Who, What, or Where game is that both of your parents were contestants on the show. And from what you've told me, your dad did pretty well. So go ahead and talk about both of their game show experiences.
My mom was on it in, I'm going to say 71. I was young, and they liked this game show, and it was filming in New York, and we lived in Nyack, New York, which is 45 minutes away. So my mom, I don't know if there was a test. I guess there must have been. I was little, so I don't really remember. But she got on the show, and she went on, and she lost. She came in second and ended up with $20 and a blender. That was sort of the big
That was
family
big
thing.
back then.
That was big. And the money you were playing for was not very much money. A winner on that game, I think, would win a few $100s generally. So $20 is something. And the blender we had for several years. The thing that became sort of the family lore about it that was interesting was the final question. I felt Who, What, or Where was similar to Jeopardy, and it was hard, and it was a quiz show. And the final question was, it had to do with state capitals. I don't know if that was the category or not, but my mom had to name the 4 state capitals that were named after presidents. And she had something like 8 seconds to do it. So that's really hard unless you just know all your state capitals by heart. So she got 2 of them, but she didn't get all 4. And I don't think I was at the taping of that. We saw it on TV, so I knew that she'd lost, but I don't think I was at the taping of that show. So I only saw it on TV. So she was on, and then my dad decided he wanted to try and get on, and he did it, I think, a year or 2 later. I know it was 73 that he was on, but I couldn't tell you how long it was between them. And so he went on and became a huge champion. He retired as a 5-day champion, which was the limit at the time. And they had this contest going on. Whoever won the most money over the course of 3 months. So they compared all the champions of 3-month period. Whoever won the most money got a car. And so he won the car. And when he won the car and picked up the keys, my brother and my mom and I went on with him, and I met Art James. It was very exciting. And we were in the audience for all of those. My brother and my mom and I were all there while he was taping those game shows, and it was incredibly exciting. It was really great.
Nowadays, the standard is a lot of shows will film multiple episodes a day. Did they do that for the Who, What, or Where game?
Yes, they did 5 shows a day. He came on the equivalent of a Wednesday. I think we saw the first 2 that didn't involve him. They were all sitting in the front row, if I remember correctly, of the audience. And I think he signaled to us that he was going to be in the next one. He was told that he was going to be in the next group. So that's interesting because I don't know if they do that anymore, that you actually watch the tapings. But in that case, they did. So he went on and he won the first day, and he won pretty handily the first day. The second game, he was trailing. And he won because there was, separate from the normal competition, there was a promotion going on that just for this 1 week of shows, whoever had the highest 1 day total got to go into this big booth of money. It's very 70s game show. And they would put $100,000 in the booth, and you had a minute to, one by one, pick out the bills and put them through this little hole. It was kind of like a big old-fashioned phone booth, which will mean nothing to anybody under 30. But it was an old-fashioned phone booth, kind of, and you had a minute, and then whatever money you got from that, you took home with you. So because of that, my dad won game 2. Because the guy who was ahead, I think he might have been safe. I think he literally might have been safe if he had bet like $20. But he wanted to overtake my dad, who had like $1,250 on his first day. So he wanted to get this promotion. So he bid like $500 of his $800 and lost. And meanwhile, my dad bid 2-1 or 3-1, something like that, and ended up winning. And then he won 3 more days after that and retired as a champion.
$1,250. That's a big total for that game.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was what he won on his first day, and that was the total that allowed him to go into the booth at the end of the week. And he said that there were $1 bills, $10 bills, and I think $100 bills in there. But they just poured this money on him. It wasn't like that later game on the Hawaiian game.
The Diamond Head game.
The Diamond Head game where it was a wind machine in there and it was floating all around you. This was literally just poured on him. So he was like waist deep in money. It was not moving. He just was trying to pick it out. It was so surreal. And you could actually see him just so overtaken by what this was that he was literally crying, laughing. You never imagined that in your life, you're going to be in a booth filled up to the waist with money, and then you'll have a minute and a whole lot of people screaming. So I think he had a blast, but it was a very strange sight to see your dad in that situation.
On national television.
On national television. Before you could tape it, too. It was before VCRs. So we had an audio tape of his appearance, which is gone. I don't know where that is. And some pictures. And I shared one of the pictures with you.
Yeah, and you have the distinction of having Art James touch your cheek.
Yeah, I was like 8, maybe 7 or 8 or something like that. And like he tousles my hair at one point, and then we got the keys and that was it. And he had the car for years. I think he had it for 12 years, something like that. Pontiac Ventura.
Did they give you turtle wax?
I don't think they did.
Oh.
He did win a trip to Las Vegas as well. But I think he turned that in and got tickets to California instead because my grandparents were out there.
So seeing your parents and specifically your dad win so much on the Who, What, or Where game, was this your official beginning to your fascination with game shows?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was. Well, I watched game shows prior to that, but I think that became just an inspiration that game shows are really cool. And they were huge in the 70s, as you have talked about in our independent study, that game shows were at their height in the 70s. So whenever I was staying home from school, there were just countless game shows to watch. And I really loved the element of intelligence, an element of knowing the right answer to things, and also just the craziness and the color and the big boards, which are not that big when you see them in person. But I just love that. So I used to, this is something we've shared also, that I used to make up game shows in my room, and I'd have my parents and my brother come and play them. And I'd make cardboard things with a piece of string that I'd lift to reveal the game or the category. And I gather you did the same thing.
A few times. You can ask my parents how many times I've asked them, can we play this at 10 o'clock at night? I have this new concept. We're going to do it in the morning.
Yeah, that was me too.
So as you've told me, you've never been back to the Rockefeller Center studios since the filming days of the Who, What, or Where game. During its run, the show was filmed in studios 6A and 8H. Brad fact. Do you know what shows have filmed
8H is Saturday Night Live.
Right, yeah.
So I was involved in a very weird way with Saturday Night Live. So I actually have been back to the building because I did a short film for Saturday Night Live in the early 90s that never aired. But I was hired to do it and we filmed it. So I have been to that building, but I have not seen Saturday Night Live live. And until you told me, I never would have guessed that that's where we were. I don't remember. It was just sort of a blur that we were taken into the city and saw my dad on the show.
The show began in 6A. I don't know exactly when the Who, What, or Where game made the studio change, but 6A was eventually home to Late Night with David Letterman and Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Brad fact.
My dad was on it not long before it was canceled. I would say within the last 6 or 8 months. So maybe it was an 8H.
Did seeing your father win 5 times on the Who, What, or Where game motivate you to want to go on a game show yourself?
I think seeing him succeed made it feel real to me. It made it feel like, oh, people can be on game shows, because then both of my parents had been on a game show. And I saw, wow, you can win money. You can succeed at this. It's not just some sort of fake thing where, well, you have to know somebody to be on the game show. And we were in New York, and at that time there were game shows in New York. But I don't know that I really thought about it until later. I think when I moved out to Los Angeles and I went to a taping of The Price is Right. And even though that was a game show that I watched, but it wasn't a show I was a huge fan of, then immediately, I mean, if you're in the audience of Price is Right, of course you're thinking, wow, what if I get picked? Wouldn't that be incredible? So, I was thinking about it from that standpoint. I think I more wanted to be a game show host, honestly, because I was an actor. And so I sort of thought, oh, well, this would use my skills. And then once I was doing improv too, I thought that would be something helpful. And I actually auditioned to be a game show host a couple of times in these very, very small game shows down in Orlando when I was living there. But I don't think I really thought about being a game show contestant until I needed the money, really. And this one particular show, Debt, and at that point there weren't a lot of good game shows on, in my opinion, in the 90s. So I saw the show Debt, and I thought, this is right up my alley. And I called the number or whatever, and they said when they were going to have auditions, and so I went.
What was the audition process like for that show?
Well, you went into this big room. I can't remember if it was a studio. We never saw the set, I don't believe. But a whole bunch of us came in, and I got the feeling that they were seeing several over the course of the day. I think that they probably over a week were going to have interviews for all the contestants they were going to use for many episodes. So I went in there, and I would say there were about 50 of us, and we all took a test. just a written test. So it was very casual, actually. But I remember this guy was sitting near me, and he said, yeah, well, I'm hoping I can get on this game show because I'm in debt. And I said, oh, it's the name of the game. I made some sort of small talk. And he said, yeah, I owe $60,000. And I remember thinking, you're not going to get that kind of money on this show. But then he didn't even pass the test. So I was like, well, I wish him luck. Not many of us passed the test. So let's say there are 50 or 60 of us. I think maybe 7 of us passed the test. It was all pop culture questions. But I passed, and then they did a mock game, I guess. I think they interviewed me briefly, and then we did a mock game. And I thought I did pretty well in the mock game. So I thought there was a good chance that I would be called, but I didn't know when. As it turned out, I was called for the very first show of that season that they taped. I was on. I mean, a whole bunch of us were there.
Right, so you were on season 2.
Right.
And at that point, they made some changes since season 1 because it was too like Jeopardy, and they had to make some changes.
I don't even remember that. What changes did they make?
So when you were on, they had the video monitor screen for the questions. The previous season, they had a board that looked like the Jeopardy board.
Oh, okay.
And it was 5 categories and the 5 questions, and it was just like the Jeopardy board.
Oh, wow,
And
okay.
the detonator was more like the Daily Double because it was only on one clue instead of the detonator be a category.
Right.
I don't know what I'm singing.
Oh, that's a good one. That's the detonator. Whoa! Woo! Tic-tac-toe was never this dangerous. The most difficult category on today's board, in the opinion of our producers. This category is all about popular song titles we don't seem to know the meanings of. The value of each question in this category is doubled.
Merv Griffin Enterprises actually sued Det because the gameplay was too similar to Jeopardy, especially since in the first season, the format of the questions was I am, you are, meaning the contestants were forced to say you are before their answer. And that was basically the same thing as answering in the form of a question on Jeopardy. Since you were on the second season, that's why you didn't have to say you are before any of your answers, even though the material was still written in the I am, you are format. Brad fact!
Right. Oh, that's funny. I mean, I had seen the show, and I thought, wow, I'm doing really well playing it home. I should go on this show. And then when I heard it was picked up for a second season, they had one of those bumpers at the end sort of saying, if you're interested in playing Det, call or write in or whatever. And so I did. I think once I auditioned, then I went home and watched it every night to make sure that I was aware of the kinds of things. And it turned out I knew quite a few people who were on Det just casually as time went by. I met 2 or 3 other people who had been on Det, some who won and some who didn't.
I'm really hoping that one day Det will make a return to television because Det is my kind of trivia show.
Yeah.
And I've always been such a big fan of game shows that incorporated an element of a personalized category. I love that idea of let's test someone's knowledge on a subject that they think they know a lot about.
I love that too. I thought that was a very specific part of Det's DNA that made it unusual, where you had 60 seconds to get 10 that had their own category. And then when I was asked to be on the game, they said you need to have 3 categories that you feel that you're expert in. Because if you get on the game and you get to the final round, we will choose one of these categories. So I remember talking to friends like, what should I do? You wanted to choose a category that was narrow enough that you could study up on it and feel comfortable with it, but not so narrow that they'd go, well, we'll never choose this. Like you had to give them some choice. So I know I had the film Tootsie because I had seen that film a bunch of times and I felt like I could rent it. And then Columbo, which I really did know, and I had the book. And I don't remember what the third one was. And I was hoping that they would choose either Tootsie or Columbo. And they chose Columbo.
When we selected you to be a player on Det, you told us your specialty category in the world of pop culture was the TV show Columbo. So before the show, we prepared 1 question on the TV show Columbo, and if you can answer this question correctly, we'll double your current total of $3,750. However, you know the rule. If you go for it and miss it, you'll be back $6,397 in the hole.
And that goes back to the $64,000 question way back in the 50s where you chose a topic and all your questions were going to be about a specific topic.
Yep.
And I've always loved that. And I wish a lot more shows would do that.
Yeah.
There's been countless number of game shows where categories are chosen for you and everyone plays the same categories. But a whole game show devoted to pop culture and mostly celebrities, TV shows, movies, that sort of field of knowledge. And then to top it all off, a question about a topic that you think that you know a lot
Yes.
about. I
Oh,
think that's
yes.
just smart game creativity.
Yes, I think you're right. It was very creative. And some of the final questions were really hard. I mean, I remember there was one that was some specific movie. I don't remember what movie it was. I don't think it was Goodfellas, but it was something like that. And the question was, how many times is this character shot when they die? Like, how many gunshots are there? That was the question. And the person had no idea, because I think they were thinking of who played what character, or, when does this happen, or what song is playing in the background. And it was how many times this character shot. So the writers could be creative, too, in the way they asked the question, knowing that you only had this film or this TV series. They would have to be creative in the kind of question they asked that would challenge them.
Right, yeah, and just because it was pop culture-based question doesn't mean all the questions were easy. And that's what was great about it.
Yeah. When I saw Columbo up as the final category, I was like, yes, because I felt like I had the most knowledge about that. And when I put it down in the sheet, I said 1970s Columbo, because then they made a whole lot of movies in the 80s and 90s, which I thought were anywhere near as good. But the ones that I knew were the original Columbo when it was part of the NBC Mystery Wheel. So I put that in there. And then I remember during the commercial break thinking, oh no, I hope it's not something that I miss. I feel like I have this great knowledge of this category. I hope it's not something that's so esoteric, some little specific element that I'm not going to get. But luckily I did.
It's time for another big money moment on Debt.
Welcome back to Debt, everybody. Well, here we are with Jeff. You've had some time to think it over, Jeff. If you go for it, this question about the TV show Columbo will be worth $7,500. What do you want to do? You want to risk it all or walk away with what you've won so far?
Wink, I'm going to go for it.
He's going to go for it. You'll have 10 seconds to give me the answer once I've asked the question. And Jeff, obviously we all hope you win. The TV show Columbo, and the question is, in the long-running series Columbo, I'm the name of Lieutenant Columbo's dog.
Dog.
Yes! That's it! You won $7,500. Congratulations, Jeff. That's all the time we have left. We'll be back next time with 3 more big spenders like Jeff, and we'll do our best to help get them out of... Yeah! Bye, everybody.
So before we get into the specifics of the bonus round, why don't you just briefly describe what happened to you during Get Out of Debt?
I got 9 out of the 10 in the lightning round, which is like Mick or Mac, I think was the category. So it was all sorts of people's names who either had Mick or Mac. And I didn't get it.
And we're back to see if Jeff can get out of debt with the help of our main man, Wink.
Thank you, Julie. Welcome back to Debt, everybody. Well, Jeff, who's in debt because he bought a lousy computer, played the first 2 rounds, eliminated his opponents, and knocked $3,750 off his debt. And now you've earned the right, Jeff, to have us pay off your entire original debt of $6,397. It's a round that we very appropriately call Get Out of Debt. If you can answer 10 of these questions in 60 seconds, your debt of $6,397 will be completely eradicated. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, your category is the McSpeed round. These questions are all about people with an MC or an MAC in their name. In other words, a Mc or a Mac in their name, okay? Let's set your expiration date at 60 seconds, and your time starts now. I'm the Playboy Playmate who co-hosted MTV's Singled Out.
Al McPherson?
No, I introduce Johnny almost every night on The Tonight Show.
And McMahon?
Yes. I'm the hot-headed tennis champ who bagged 4 U.S.
John McEnroe?
Yes. I'm the female vocalist who sang Don't Stop with Fleetwood Mac.
Christine McVie?
Yes. I'm the famous kid song, I'm the guy who had a farm, E-I-E-I-O.
Old McDonald?
Yes. I'm the Aussie supermodel actress who was in the movie If Lucy Fell.
Al McPherson?
Yes, that's right. I'm the former Beatle who hit #1.
Paul McCartney?
Yes. I'm the Brit who starred in Oh Lucky Man, and I'm a regular on TV's Pearl.
Malcolm McDowell?
Yes, thanks to Gone with the Wind, I was the first African-American to win an Oscar.
Patty McDaniel?
Yes, I played Julie on One Day at a Time.
Pass.
I won the 1996 Oscar for Best Actress.
Pass.
I'm the child star who was left home alone in the highest grossing...
Macaulay Culkin?
Yes. I'm the Cincinnati kid who starred in The Great Escape and Bullet.
Pass.
I played the swab spy John Steed on TV's The Avengers. Almost, but not quite. Patrick McNee. Patrick McNee was the last one. The Playboy Playmate on Singled Out, Jenny McCarthy. Mackenzie Phillips, One Day at a Time. The 1996 Oscar for Best Actress, Frances McDormand. Steve McQueen was in Bullet in The Great Escape. Well, Geoff, you didn't make it down to zero, but all is not lost. In the first 2 rounds, you reduced your debt by $3,750, and that's yours to keep. Unless, of course, you decide to bet your debt.
So then they said, okay, so now you have the option to risk what you've earned so far, kind of double or nothing. You can walk away with this money, or you can double it if you choose to answer this final question. But if you get it wrong, you lose. And we will tell you what the category is now. So they said Columbo, and then they went to commercial break. So I had that time to think about it. But no, I had no idea before I went on the air. And I had sort of made up my mind that if it was Columbo, I would go for it because I felt pretty confident in Columbo. But if it had been one of the other categories, I probably wouldn't have.
Not even Tootsie you would go for it?
I don't think so, because in the meantime, I had seen this thing about how many gunshots there were, and I thought they could ask, what kind of cereal did he buy at the store?
How many sequins are on his dress?
Yeah, it could be some crazy thing like that. How many people are on camera in the big scene where he reveals himself? You only have a few seconds to answer. It could be something that was just too minor a question for me. Whereas I thought the Columbo, would be probably about a celebrity guest star, or it would be something about Columbo's character, or it would be about a particular episode. And I felt pretty good about those.
So you were introduced having $63.97 in debt because you bought a really expensive computer.
Yeah.
Was there a limit as to how much money you could actually ask for on the show?
I don't remember if one of the other contestants told me this or if they actually told you this on the show, but the common wisdom was that it was usually somewhere between like $6,000 and $9,000. That seemed to be what I saw. So I think if somebody came in with more, they would just lower it to that figure. But I chose a figure that I thought made sense. But I never saw anybody with debt of like $20,000, or I never saw anybody with debt over $3,000. It seemed to be all in about that area.
Did you have to prove that's how much you owed?
Not at all. It was a gimmick. I thought it was a fun gimmick, but it was a gimmick. Because I thought, am I going to have to bring a receipt? Does somebody have to come in there with like, I'm being evicted, I need this much in rent? I wasn't sure, but no, because it was a clever idea. I mean, it's a little bit like Survivor or one of these shows where some people go on because they really need the money, and some people go on and don't need the money at all. And I think that was the case with debt, too.
Did you actually buy a really expensive computer?
I had bought a computer. It was not that expensive. It was not in that realm. Early computers were more expensive than they are now for a lot less power, but it wasn't like that. But I did outlay money for that, and I thought that was, reasonable to say that I needed it. I was a struggling actor. I just started writing, but I was not working in the industry. So people usually had some sort of specific reason that they were on the game, and instead of saying, I have a lot of different bills or whatever, that this made the best sense.
It was also a very unique item at the time to say you had debt due to it, because most people go on game shows and say they need money since they just bought a new house or a new car. But home computers in the 90s were expensive, as you said.
They were, and as I said, they were horrible. And they were just the first versions of them, so they were expensive. In retrospect, it's kind of funny. Here I was, became a writer, so to have a computer was crucial. But, I wasn't doing it from that standpoint. When it's true, people came on, some people were like, oh, my son is going to college and I need money for that. Or the car was in an accident and I need to get it repaired. People had different reasons, and I don't know how many of them were real. Because, again, you didn't have to show anything. It wasn't like People's Court where you had to show the documentation.
Like we mentioned before, Debt's gameplay consisted primarily of pop culture-based questions. So prior to your appearance on the show, were you nervous for any specific pop culture subject to appear during your episode?
Yes, actually, I was. I was less knowledgeable about certain aspects of music. I was less knowledgeable, honestly, about stuff you'd read about in People magazine or National Enquirer or something like that. Those kind of off-screen romances, that element, I didn't really know very much. And sometimes there would be questions about that.
So let's talk about the main game. And I've got to say, you got off to a little rocky start.
Yes,
in the first
I
round.
did.
But the category that got you going was female dicks. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Listeners, get your mind out of the gutter. The questions were all about female detectives, but the great writers on Debt cleverly named the category female dicks.
Dina, select the next category, please.
Let's go with female dicks, Wink.
Female dicks, this category about female detectives. Female detectives. During the 1978 TV season, I'm author Carolyn Keene's teenage super sleuth who shared a time slot with Frank and Joe Hardy. Yes.
Nancy Drew.
Yes. For minus $100, in the adventure series Heart to Heart, I'm the actress who played writer and amateur sleuth Jennifer Hart. Yes.
Stephanie Powers.
Yes. For minus $150 on female dicks, I'm family affair actor Sebastian's last name and the Murder, She Wrote code, where Jessica Fletcher's friends died faster than an Arsenio Hall sitcom. Jeff.
Cabot.
Yes, Cabot Cove. For minus 200. Female Dick. My daddy, Ephraim, starred in the FBI, and I carried on the family tradition as Detective Laura Holt on Remington Steele. Paul.
Stephanie Zimmerlin.
Yes, Stephanie Zimmerlin. One more in that category, Female Dick, for minus 250. I'm the 1996 Nickelodeon flick where Michelle Trachtenberg scratches around Rosie O'Donnell for clues, but never finds out why Rosie's successful. Paul, just in time.
Harriet the Spy.
Yes, just under the wire. Harriet the Spy. Good for 250.
I haven't watched it in a while. I have an old VHS tape of it, but you were the person who showed me it's right online. You can see it.
Right on YouTube.
So I watched that a year ago, but I haven't seen it since. So I came on pretty confidently. I thought I should do well. But the guy I was playing against, he was strong. And the woman in the middle, they both had done better than I was doing. And I really was sweating a little. And I was able to kind of squeak through in the second half of the first round and make it to the second round. But yeah, you're right. I was not doing well at the beginning.
And it must have been really nerve-wracking because the first round is an elimination round.
Yes. I thought, am I going to go in third?
Well, at one point you were in last place.
I know. So I was very happy. Once I made it to the second round, I think I just felt a little bit more confident.
Did you know a lot of the answers in the first round, but just had trouble ringing in before your opponents?
Yeah. You know, they talk about that with Jeopardy too. Some of it is just getting used to this. It's a weird environment. And there's a live studio audience, and you're at this podium thing, and it's a little intimidating. And I also think that everything, as I said, it just looks smaller. So in a weird way, you're just adjusting to what your idea of what it's going to look like is to what it really does look like. And that is distracting from when you're at home and all you're doing is answering the questions. And I think that I suffered a little from that. And the guy was good. He was fast.
Paul was his name.
Paul was good. He was fast.
So you both made it to the second round. And
Yes.
the second round's different in that you're shown a category, and there's 5 questions in each category, but almost like bid a note from Name That Tune.
Right.
You had to bid how many questions in that category you think that you can answer.
Yes. And there's a real strategy to that. And I watched the show enough that I think I did well, particularly towards the end of that round. I was lucky in that I got to choose first, and particularly the Chevy Chase category. That to me is where I think I won the game, was my choice about the Chevy Chase film category.
Right. So you're going in, you were $950 behind.
Yeah.
And the first category is 300 and 400, 500, 750, and then 1500. So in a sense, to catch up, automatically, you had to get the first 3 categories.
Right.
That would help you advance yourself. And then, of course, Paul gets the first one.
I remember.
Paul got the $300. You're now over $1,200 behind.
Right.
You mentioned you figured out the strategy. To you, do you think it was more advantageous to pass more or to play more?
I think I ended up having to do a little of both. I remember when the Scooby-Doo category, which is one of the categories I remember the most, because I used to watch that show all the time, the Scooby-Doo guest stars.
The new Scooby-Doo movies.
Exactly. So I remember watching that when I was a kid, and I felt like I'll be okay in this category. So I think I said 4. And I remember that he's like, oh, you take it, because I felt like that wasn't something he knew about. So I felt pretty good about that, and I thought that I would get them, and I did.
This is our $750 category, which is I guest starred on Scooby-Doo. Geoff, start the bidding.
I can name 4.
Paul, he knows a lot about Scooby-Doo. But Paul says you got it. 4 out of 5 will knock $750 off your debt. I'm the creepy TV family that hired Scooby's gang to watch over Pugsley and Wednesday's spooky mansion.
The Addams Family.
That's one. As the mystery of the spooky fog unfurled, I'm the former Fife who enlisted the Mystery Machine Gang.
Don Knotts?
Yes. 2 to go. I'm Curly Neal's uptown basketball team that helped Scooby solve the puzzle of a pirate ship.
The Harlem Globetrotters.
That's 3. I guest starred on Scooby-Doo. Final question if you get this. Those meddling kids are no Hogan family. I'm the Wheat Thin actress who guest starred with the Scoopster on a haunted movie set.
Sandy Duncan.
You have the money. $750 off your debt.
I think it worked to my advantage that I felt really confident about Scooby-Doo. I don't think there were a lot of those categories that he actually felt confident in. So that really helped me. And when they came up with the last category of this Chevy Chase category, I was like, I know nothing about Chevy Chase bomb films, not Chevy Chase successful films. And I was like, I'm not going to get this, but I got to choose first. And so I remember really strategically thinking, I don't think I can get 3, but I have to say 3, because if I say 2 and he says 3, I know I can't do 4 and he might be able to do 3. So I said, if I do 3, I think he might feel like I need to go to 4. So I said 3, it worked out. He said 4, I said, prove it. It's a very difficult category because these are films that bombed. I mean, how many people know a bunch of films that bombed? And he didn't. And that's basically how I won.
And the first one in that category, it was Vegas Vacation.
Yes.
He said Las Vegas Vacation, and they ruled him incorrect.
Yeah, I remember that.
At that point, were you thinking, I got this, I won?
That's exactly what I thought. And then when he sort of knew it, but then got it wrong, and now he needed all 4 of the others, and they generally got harder as they went along, I felt like, I think I'm in pretty good shape.
Final category, this determines the winner of the game. It's valued at 1,500 big ones. Chevy chasing a career. These are questions about moments that are low riders in Chevy Chase's career. Geoff, start the bidding.
I can name 3.
Paul.
I can name 4.
Geoff.
Prove it.
He says prove it. Paul, if you can answer 4 out of 5 on Chevy chasing a career, the game is yours. Anything short of 4, Geoff's the winner. 1. I'm the 1997 Vacation sequel where the Chev man rolled the dice and crapped out at theaters.
Las Vegas Vacation.
Is that acceptable? No, I'm sorry. It has to be the exact title. The exact title is Vegas Vacation, not Las Vegas Vacation. 4 left. You need all 4 to win the game. I'm the 1988 unfunny follow-up to the 1980 film where Cheveroni reprised his role as club golfer Ty Webb.
Caddyshack 2.
That's correct, yes. I'm the Chase Meister's 1992 film with Daryl Hannah that disappeared in theaters faster than Chevy's hair. Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Geoff has won the game. So congratulations to you, Geoff. That means you're going on to the final round with a chance to have us pay off your entire debt amount.
So you won the game and you were moving on to the bonus round where they give you a category and you have to get 10 questions correct in 60 seconds for debt to pay off your debt. Going into the bonus round, were you confident that you were going to get all 10 correct answers and win?
No, I wouldn't say I was confident. I was hopeful. I don't know what the percentage of that show was, but I felt like maybe half the time, I don't even know that half the time people won the bonus round because it's a timed category and so you really could just get stuck on something. I felt I had a chance, but I didn't know what the category was going to be. It wasn't like they took a break after. It was like, okay, here's your category. It's mix or mac. And then I was like, well, people's names are sometimes hard. And what happened for me was I got on a real roll early on. I mean, I missed one, but then I got a whole lot and I felt momentum. And then I just had a complete brain cramp on Francis McDormand's name, who I knew, but I couldn't come up with, and Steve McQueen's name, which was ridiculous. But I think by that point I was feeling the pressure. But I got a couple of others, like I got Malcolm McDowell and Christy McVie, which is not a name that I think a lot of people would have gotten, but I knew Fleetwood Mac. And I got that very quickly. I remember Wink Martindale at the break saying, oh, wow, I thought you were going to do it. Like they had behind my head a win sign that goes up so that he knows, because I think he's concentrating really on just reading the question. And that they had that going, because I think I had like 10 seconds to get the last one and I just couldn't do it. So that's the way it goes.
The one part I was so disappointed about your episode is that the security guard never came out for you.
That's right. Remind me about that.
So the security guard, from the episodes I've seen, I think he only actually comes out when someone wins and then they can try to double their original debt amount.
Double or nothing sort of, yes.
Right. And so he would come out with the briefcase.
So it was Mr. O'Toole kind of. It was like
like Emil O'Toole from Treasure Hunt.
Treasure Hunt. Yeah.
He was called Mr. Clean because he had a bald head.
Right. Yes. He might have come out if I had won. I don't remember. That was one of the gimmicks of the show.
He would dance if you won, and with the sternest face ever.
I had forgotten that. Yes. I mean, what was strange about the whole experience for me was I went on and then I won my money, and then you leave. I didn't stay for anybody else on the show. The whole thing was over by like 11:30 in the morning. And then I just left, having won $7,000. And it was really surreal in that way. You sort of feel like it's going to be your whole day. And it was just a portion of it. So I don't know whether Mr. Clean would have come on and came on for others that year.
When we selected you to be a player on the show, you told us your specialty category in the world of pop culture was the music of Weird Al Yankovic. Before the show, we prepared one question about the music of Weird Al. And if you can answer this question correctly, we'll not only pay off your debt of $8,697, we'll also give you that same amount in cash. And here it is in this briefcase held by Mr. Clean, our debt security guard. However, if you go for this and miss, you lose everything.
Even though you knew that if Columbo came up as your specialty category, you were going to bet your debt, Did you have in mind what the actual question might be based on your Columbo trivia knowledge?
I thought it might be a particular actor or actress that they might ask me about, or what was the title of the pilot, or a specific scene maybe. And again, I felt pretty well versed because I not only knew the series really well, but there was this book that I had. It was called The Columbo File, Phile. So I had been studying that. So I felt pretty confident about it, but I have to say I did not expect that question. The question was not at all what I thought it would be, and it took me a second. I think you can sort of see, I take a second to go, wait a minute, that's right? What I'm thinking is the answer, right? Because I remember there's a little section of the book that talks about this, and then I said it. It wasn't that I thought it was an easy question, but it was not the area of the series that I thought they'd be asking about.
And then so the question came up, what is the name of Columbo's dog?
Yes.
And of course the answer is...
Dog. The name is Dog. And there's one episode where he talks to somebody. He's investigating a murder, and the dog is in the car, and somebody says, oh, such a cute dog. What's his name? He said, I don't have a name for it yet. I'm thinking of just calling it Dog, or it answers to Dog or something. And that's what he ends up calling it. And the dog is in a handful of episodes. It's not in every single episode of Columbo, but I remember that there's a section about it in the book, and it's not some clever, interesting name. It's just Dog, which is very much the Columbo character.
So for a general fan of the show, it might have been a tricky question.
Yeah, I think they might have outthought it and thought, oh no, I can't remember what it is. But I did know the show and knew that that was what it was.
When Wink finished reading the question, did you get that feeling inside of you of excitement because you knew the answer?
Yeah, there was kind of 1 second, I was like, wait a minute, this is right? And then I knew it. And then once I said it, I knew that I was right. You know, I wasn't thinking, oh, it's either Dog or...
Spike.
I knew it was Dog.
And as someone who watched game shows growing up, what was it like being in the presence of such a legendary host in Wink Martindale?
It was pretty amazing, actually, because Wink Martindale, at that time, to me, was the quintessential game show host in both the fact that he had hosted a lot of games and that he sort of was almost the stereotype of a game show host. The one thing I told everybody when I knew I was going to be on the game, I said, I am going to call him Wink at least once on this game show because it's such a specific name and I want that opportunity. And so I did. Funniest thing about my whole experience there was the year before, he had been practicing doing this little spin because he was wearing like a tuxedo to host the game show, which is already kind of strange. Most game show hosts don't wear tuxedos. So he would do this little spin on this little carpeting area that you were there for the final category. And this was the first episode of season 2. So he was practicing and he's like, oh, I want to try it again this year. And he started spinning and he fell into me. I remember thinking, this is crazy. You know, that there's this 60-some-year-old man practicing pirouettes and falling into me as he's trying to get his balance doing a spin. It was hilarious. I loved it. A perfect game show moment for me.
Now let me ask, did you get a debt piggy bank?
No. Matter of fact, the actual payoff of the check was the most mundane thing. It came in an unmarked envelope. No letter. No like, hey, congratulations. Just like a check to my name. That was it. So that was weird. And you got it about 6 weeks later.
I guess only the losers got the piggy bank.
I guess so.
Did you actually pay off your debt, per se, with
I did.
the $7,500?
I put it immediately in the bank, and there were debts to pay. But, you know, again, it was not a specific thing for me where it was like there's this accruing computer debt that I was paying. It was more, it was at a time that I was in the business. I'd been in Los Angeles 2 years, I guess, at that point. But it was before I started writing. So it was helpful. I won't lie. The most important thing about that experience was that I was on a game show. The money, I loved winning, but it was the experience of being on the game show. That's what I loved, and that was winning to me. And I've tried to be on game shows since. I auditioned for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire a couple of times as well. So I still love game shows.
Is that the only one you auditioned for?
That's the only one I've auditioned for since then, yeah.
Are there any game shows past or present that you would have liked or would like to be on?
You know, a lot of the shows from the 70s, I would have loved to have been on Split Second.
Split Second?
Yeah,
that's
I don't know
name.
why.
This is our champion, Mary Moorhead, and her two new opponents. Today, she'll be trying for her second chance to win one of these 5 1972 Chevrolets. The 4-seat Camaro Sport Coupe, the Vega Camback Wagon, the Chevelle Malibu Convertible, the Kingswood Estate 6-passenger station wagon, or the classic Corvette Stingray. Today on Split Second. And now the host of our show, Tom Kennedy. Hello there.
I just liked that show. I loved the starting the car. I thought that was so exciting. And I thought that was interesting with the dollar amounts going down, depending on how many people got it right. So I don't know why that pops out at me. I think, generally speaking, I like game shows with questions. Something like Deal or No Deal has no appeal to me. I prefer ones that are skills about knowledge.
Split Second is definitely one of my favorite 70s game shows, and I'm glad to know that it's one of your favorite 70s game shows as well.
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting game with this really wonderful, cheesy ending. I think that's what I loved. I liked that the game itself was skill, and then the end was this over-the-top, this key starts one of these cars, go into the car, and they literally go into the car and turn it and see if it starts. And I just thought that was so quintessential game show excitement and fun. And so I think I would have liked to have been on that.
Mr. Michael Rusnow just won his first game. They tell me you're a writer. How's the writing business these days?
Lousy.
Well, things are tough all over. We haven't given away a car for 4 days here, you know.
I'll try to break your record.
All right. Not only will you win a car if you pick the right one, Michael, but the jackpot is up to $600. That's in addition to the money you've earned. $600, a new car, the money you've won, all can be yours if you pick the right one. Which one do you want to go for?
The Kingswood station wagon.
The Kingswood station wagon. The biggie. Here we go. Let's find out.
All right, Michael has picked Chevy's Kingswood Estate Wagon with power steering, V8 engine, turbo hydromatic transmission, and power front disc brakes. All is standard equipment from Chevrolet.
No, not yet. Not till Tommy tells you. Now, I don't know if you were watching the show yesterday, but Mary Moorhead came back here and tried this very car, and it was the one right next door. But that doesn't mean anything, because these cars each day are picked purely at random. You have as good a chance as anyone that this car will start. So good luck to you, Michael. Let's try it. I am sorry, Michael, this isn't the one. Jack Clark, which one is it today?
It was this little beauty in the middle here today.
With today's reboot craze of game shows, I would love to see Split Second return to television, but unfortunately, I don't think that it would capture the attention of today's average viewer.
I could be wrong about this, but I feel like there was an active watching that we used to do on game shows, that you played along and you really watched. And these game shows required that sometimes. So in order to be successful at them, if you're going to watch Pyramid, I guess you can listen to it in the background, but you wanted to watch and see what clues they're giving and whether they're going to make it up to the top. And I think now, maybe just, first of all, our attention spans are shorter, but also I think there's sort of like, it's on in the background. A game show is sort of there, and I can come in the middle and sort of say, oh, what are they going to do with this? So I agree with you. I just think maybe the way we watch game shows is different than it used to be.
And to be honest, I think it's too simple for today.
Yeah, that may be true too. Too sort of straightforward.
Yeah, too straightforward.
Yeah.
There's not enough pizzazz.
Yeah, or twists or anything.
Right, yeah.
No, I think you're probably right.
So last question, did you ever think about trying to write for a game show?
I would not have known how to do that outside of the ones that I had in my room for my family. I would have. But again, because I didn't start as a writer, it would have come after the fact, like after I got involved in writing scripted television. Then if somebody had said, hey, there's a game show, do you want to work on a game show? I would have said definitely. And I did know a guy casually who created a game show and didn't start in that area, but he and his partner created a game show in the probably the late 90s. But I didn't ever see it as a goal because, again, I was kind of more thinking of myself as an on-screen talent when I was acting. And then when I was writing, I was doing scripted, not game shows. But I love game shows. If there's somebody who's looking for writing, hey, I'd be interested in it. I do think it's a specific skill set. And you can tell when game shows have good questions and when they don't.
And I think the writers, especially for quiz shows, are overlooked because you got to think about this. These people have to make sure every little fact is correct and fact-check everything and make sure the writing is catchy enough and to make sure that a lot of the questions don't get repeated and the array of topics is spread out. I wish that the Emmys would have awards for game show writing.
I agree. And you know what? I think one could argue that there is more of a spotlight and investigation onto whether a question or an answer to a question is fair on game shows than there is on news. Obviously, we hear about this right now. What is real and what is not, and where did this source come from, and is this really true or not true? And in game shows, somebody is brought back a week later or a month later because, well, it turns out that in certain parts of Tasmania, they call this animal a web-footed something and instead of a flat-footed something. And so we're going to bring this person back to be fair. And there's really an element of being fair and accurate in game shows because people will call in or tweet or write on the Facebook page that this is not fair, that's wrong. And so I think you're right. They have to be very, very careful about what they do. And game shows, as I said, I think they're a pillar of being careful and trying to be fair in a way that a lot of other TV shows aren't.
Well, Geoff, it's time for my favorite portion of the game show. And even though we've known each other for about 2 years and talked game shows all throughout that time frame, this is the first time I get to play a game with you. So this is very exciting for me. It's time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
Now, over 20 years ago, you played this game in hopes of winning the money needed to wipe away your real-life debt. Now, in 2019, you're going to play this game for the biggest prize I can offer you, pride. So, in a sense, you're once again playing the game for a chance to go home with nothing. It's time to play a Bradley Clarke version of Get Out of Debt. Get out of debt. And as you might have expected, all of the questions that I'll be asking you during Get Out of Debt are game show trivia questions. So hopefully all of the knowledge that you've gathered from me in your office will come in handy here in the studio. So here's how this version of Get Out of Debt works. The game is divided into 3 rounds, each of which has its own game show inspired category. You'll have an expiration date of 60 seconds in each round to answer up to 10 questions correctly. For each correct answer, you'll score 1 point, but 10 correct answers will score you 15 points. At the end of each round, you'll have the chance to bet your points in this case, but more about that when we get to it. Now, Geoff, if you can score a total of 30 points or more by the end of the 3rd round, you'll be deemed a winner, and you're going to go home with
nothing.
So you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
Then let's play Get Out of Debt. Remember, 30 points are needed by the end of the 3rd round to win, and during all 3 rounds, you can pass on a question if you don't know the answer to it. But keep in mind there are only 16 questions per category, so use your passes wisely. All right, let's start with round 1. And your first category is obviously. These are all game shows whose titles all feature the word the.
Okay.
Let's set your expiration date at 60 seconds. And your time starts now. I'm the game show that featured a mouse during some of the show's intros.
Pass.
I'm the game show whose bonus round is called Face the Devil.
The Joker's Wild.
Correct. I'm the game show that features contestants facing off against Mark the Beast Labette.
I don't know. Pass.
I'm the game show that centers around an Asian instrument.
An Asian instrument? Pass.
I'm the game show that features the 25-point bonus question.
The 25-point bonus question. Pass.
I'm the game show that lasted for 11 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds.
The 24 or something. Sorry.
Incorrect. I'm the game show that originally featured 3 less zeros in its title.
The $64,000 question.
Correct. I'm the game show that was announced as America's biggest bargain sale.
It's the sale of the century?
Correct. I'm the game show that featured 3 bachelors or bachelorettes.
The dating game.
Correct. Right under the buzzer. You got 4 correct.
Okay.
Let's go back to the ones you missed. I'm the game show that featured a mouse during some of the show's intros. That's Beat the Clock.
Oh, okay.
I'm the game show that features contestants facing Mark the Beast Labette. That's The Chase. I'm the game show that centers around an Asian instrument, The Gong Show.
Oh, yes, of course. I should have gotten that one.
I'm the game show that features the 25-point bonus question, The Newlywed Game.
Yes.
I'm the game show that lasted 11 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds. The Million-Second Quiz.
The Million-Second Quiz. Yeah, I saw a little of that.
But you got 4 right.
Okay.
But now you have a chance to bet your points by answering 1 more question. If you can correctly answer the question, I'll double your points from this round to a total of 8. However, if you answer incorrectly, you lose the points from this round, meaning you go back down to 0. But before the show, I asked you what you thought your strongest subject was in the world of game show knowledge, and that was going to be your category to all the Bet Your Points portions of the game.
Okay.
And you decided that in the world of game show knowledge, your strongest subject is celebrity guest stars of 1970s game shows.
I did. That's what I said.
So do you want to bet your points? Keep in mind, you need 30 points by the end of the third round to win.
I know. I think I got to risk it.
You got to go for it?
I got to go for it.
Once I finish reading the question, you have 10 seconds to answer.
Okay.
And here is your question for 8 points. While Charles Nelson Riley was on break from Match Game between 1974 and 1975, I'm the MASH star who filled in for him during most of the episodes.
Gary Berghoff?
Correct!
Woo!
You've ended round 1 with 8 points. You have 22 points to go, but technically you can end the game with any one round because there are 30 points up for grabs per round. So let's move on to round 2. And the category for round 2 is Start Spreading the Clues. These are game shows that were at one time during their run filmed in New York City.
Okay. Oh, I like the title. Start Spreading the Clues. It's funny. Okay.
Let's set your expiration date at 60 seconds. And your time starts now. I'm the seven-figure sum game show whose original version was hosted by Alan Ludden.
$1 million chance of a lifetime.
Incorrect. I'm the game show that's centered around rebus puzzles.
Concentration.
Correct. I'm the game show in which the actual contestant signed an affidavit.
The house one?
Incorrect.
New house? Okay.
I'm the game show that featured the fastest finger question.
Millionaire. Who Wants to be a Millionaire?
Correct. I'm the original incarnation of the game show with a cuckoo bird as a sound effect.
I think the $10,000 Pyramid.
Correct. I'm the game show that features 2 teams of 3 channeling their ESP.
Tattletales.
Incorrect. I'm the game show that featured 3 of journalism's 5 W's in its title.
The Who Would Wear show. Game.
Correct. I'm the game show that made the phrase, "Is it bigger than a bread box?" famous.
Oh boy. What's my line?
Correct. And time is up. This round you got 5 correct. Let's go back over the ones you missed. I'm the seven-figure sum game show whose original version was hosted by Alan Ludden. That's $1 Million Password. I'm the game show in which the actual contestant signed an affidavit. That's To Tell the Truth.
Oh, I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten they signed an affidavit.
I'm the game show that features 2 teams of 3 channeling their ESP. The Match Game. The original Match Game.
Oh, I didn't even know that's how it worked. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same option as last time. You can go for double. That's 10 points.
Okay.
Which would take you to 18. Remember, if you lose, you would stay with 8, which means you would have to get all 10 and the bonus question the next round.
Okay.
Or you can stay with 13. Technically, you would still have to do the same thing.
Then I think I have to go for it.
I think so.
I have to go for it.
So once again, the category is Celebrity Guest Stars of 1970s Game Shows. And Jeff, here's your question. I'm the Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In star who appeared on game shows such as Pyramid and Tattletales that would belt out a booming musical note every so often.
Joanne Worley?
Oh.
It's not Joanne Worley.
It is Joanne Worley. You got it! You now have 18 points. So, in the final category, if you can get all 10 right then and there, you're a winner.
All right.
Let's move on to round 3. Your final category is called Giving a Nod to Wink. These are all game shows or elements of game shows associated with Wink Martindale.
Okay.
Let's set your expiration date at 60 seconds. And your time starts now. I'm the mythical creature featured during the Tic-Tac-Toe bonus round.
Dragon.
Correct. I'm the clothing item Wink would wear at the end of Friday episodes of Tic-Tac-Toe.
Tuxedo.
Wrong. I'm the family member featured in the title of a game show Wink hosted from 1967 to 1968.
Mother?
More specific.
Mother-in-law?
Correct. I'm the network How's Your Mother-in-Law broadcasted on.
CBS.
Incorrect. I'm the Wink hosted game show whose contestants played blackjack.
21.
Incorrect. I'm the city where Gambit was filmed from 1980 to 1981.
Las Vegas.
Correct. I'm the Wink hosted game show based on a knowledgeable board game.
Trivial Pursuit.
Correct. I'm the Wink hosted game show based on a word-finding game.
Word-finding game. Crossword puzzle.
Incorrect. On the first ever game show Wink developed and produced.
Gambit?
Incorrect. On the classic money receptacle losing debt contestants received as a parting gift.
A piggy bank.
Correct. On the alliterative game show Wink hosted on the Travel Channel from 1990 to 1991.
Bye-bye Broadway.
No.
I don't know.
The
I'm
Great
sorry.
Getaway Game.
The Great Getaway Game. I'm not familiar with that one.
And the ones you missed, on the clothing item Wink would wear at the end of Friday episodes of Tic Tac Dough, that's hats. On the network How's Your Mother-in-Law broadcasted on ABC.
Okay.
On the Wink hosted game show whose contestants play blackjack, Gambit
Yeah, I
was
should have
the
gotten
answer.
that one.
I'm the Wink hosted game show based on a word-finding game, that's Boggle. And I'm the first ever game show Wink developed and produced, Headline Chasers.
Boy, would not have gotten that one. Yeah, I've heard you mention that game show, though.
You got 5.
No.
But might as well go for the last question.
Right.
See how you do.
See how close I come. So I could get almost to 30. but
28.
28. All right, that's close.
Here it comes.
Okay.
For a total of 28 points. I'm the frequent game show celebrity panelist and player known as the Poet Laureate of television.
This one I know. Nipsey Russell.
Yes!
That's why I chose this category. Yeah, I feel pretty good about this category.
And see, that's why that part of the game was always so exciting.
You're right.
So unfortunately, you technically did not win the entire game since you didn't make it to 30 points, but you did answer all 3 Bet Your Points questions correctly, so we can say that you won all 3 individual rounds of the game. And once again, you came close to winning the whole thing.
I did. I came
On
close.
debt.
I know. It's like debt all again. I couldn't come with Steve McQueen.
Well, Geoff, thank you for playing Get Out of Debt.
Thank you very much.
Get Out of Debt. Well, this has been such a pleasure after a semester-long journey through the time capsule that game shows have left us.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for the opportunity. As I said earlier, and I'll say it again, I have never met anybody who knows as much about game shows as you do. And it's inspiring that you know this much information. I really hope that this leads to a career in that field.
I hope so too. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but according to the YouTube video, your episode of Debt originally aired on June 9th, 1997, which was 4 days after I was born.
Oh my gosh! How about that? So you probably didn't see it.
It took me a while to get to it.
Yeah, I'll understand.
Geoff, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And of course, you have an open invitation to come back,
Thank you.
to talk whenever you'd like, or to play the game again.
Yes, maybe I can win next time. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Well, the expiration date on this episode is almost down to 0, which means it's time to wrap up this episode of The Game Show by saying thank you all so much for listening, and thank you once again to Geoff Tarson for being my special guest today. Now, Debt was hosted by legendary game show host Wink Martindale, and I've had the pleasure of having Wink as my special guest on the game show, not once, but twice. On episode 13, we talked about the 45th anniversary of Gambit, and on episode 30, we talked about the 40th anniversary of Tic Tac Dough. Now, if you'd like to listen to those extraordinary episodes, as well as any other episode of the game show, you can do so by logging on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. Plus, don't forget to like The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and #TheGameShow. But of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of The Talk Show, all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and I've got to go continue my quest of finding the detonator. Bye for now.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production.
Get your game on.